We've all met that person, the one who's absolutely certain they know best, even when they clearly don't. Maybe it's that coworker who dominates every meeting with misplaced confidence, the family member who becomes an overnight expert after watching one documentary, or the internet commenter who insists they know more than trained professionals. But what really drives this strange disconnect between confidence and competence? Why do people who know the least sometimes think they know the most? The answer lies in a fascinating psychological bias discovered over 2 decades ago, the Dunning-Kruger effect. In 1999, social psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger published a landmark study that changed how we understand human judgment. They identified a pattern. People with low ability in a given domain tend to overestimate their skills, while true experts, ironically, tend to underestimate theirs. Or, as Dunning himself joked, the first rule of the Dunning-Kruger Club is that you don't know you're a member. This phenomenon doesn't just affect a few overconfident individuals. It's a bias that touches nearly everyone, in one way or another. So today, let's unpack this powerful concept, how it works, how it shapes our world, and most importantly, how we can avoid falling into its trap. The lemon juice robber, a case too absurd to be fiction. The story that sparked it all started in 1995. A man named MacArthur Wheeler walked into 2 Pittsburgh banks in broad daylight and robbed them without wearing any disguise. When police arrested him later that night, Wheeler was genuinely shocked. "But I wore the juice," he exclaimed. See, Wheeler had rubbed lemon juice on his face, believing it would make him invisible to security cameras. He had read that lemon juice could be used as invisible ink, so, by his logic, it should work on his skin too. Psychologist David Dunning read about this bizarre incident and couldn't stop thinking about it. How could someone be so misinformed, and yet so confident? He teamed up with his graduate student, Justin Kruger, to find out the experiments that proved a point. In their now famous study, Dunning and Kruger tested participants on humor, grammar, and logical reasoning. After each test, participants estimated how well they did compared to others. The results were shocking. Those who scored in the bottom 25% thought they performed better than 60% of their peers. Meanwhile, the top performers, the ones who actually did well, tended to underestimate their performance. In short, the least competent people were the most confident, while the most competent were often more humble. Dunning summed it up perfectly. If you're incompetent, you can't know you're incompetent. The skills you need to produce the right answer are the same skills you need to recognize what a right answer is. That's what he called the double burden of incompetence. Not only do you lack skill, but you also lack the ability to recognize your lack of skill. The core of the bias, metacognition and blind spots. At its heart, the Dunning-Kruger effect is about metacognition, our ability to think about our own thinking. When we're not very good at something, we also lack the insight to judge how good or bad we actually are. This leads to what Dunning calls the unknown unknowns problem. We don't know what we don't know. It's like walking into a jungle and thinking you've explored it all after seeing a few trees. Then there's confirmation bias, the mental filter that makes us notice only what supports our beliefs and ignore what doesn't. If someone believes they're skilled, they'll remember every little success and conveniently forget their failures. And finally, there's the above-average effect, the comforting illusion that we're better than most people at most things. Statistically, of course, that can't be true. Yet studies show that over 90% of drivers think they're above average. As philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people so full of doubts. The journey from Mount Stupid to real wisdom." In popular culture, this phenomenon is often visualized as a curve, a kind of psychological roller coaster. At the start, when you learn something new, your confidence skyrockets. You've just reached what's humorously called Mount Stupid. You know just enough to feel smart, but not enough to realize how little you actually know. As you keep learning, you hit the valley of despair, where your confidence plummets. You finally see how complex the topic really is. This is where many people give up. But if you keep going, studying, practicing, seeking feedback, you begin the slope of enlightenment, gradually aligning confidence with competence. Eventually, you reach what Dunning calls the plateau of sustainability, where your skills and your self-assessment are finally in sync. Interestingly, real experts often remain slightly underconfident. The more they know, the more they realize how much they don't know. As physicist Richard Feynman put it, "I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers that might be wrong." That humility, knowing the limits of your knowledge, is the mark of true expertise. When overconfidence rules, the Dunning-Kruger effect in the real world. The Dunning-Kruger effect isn't confined to labs and psychology textbooks. It's everywhere around us. It quietly shapes our workplaces, politics, healthcare, and even the way we use the internet. The pattern is surprisingly consistent. People with the least knowledge are often the loudest and most certain, while true experts tend to be cautious, nuanced, and sometimes even self-doubting. Let's break down how this plays out in everyday life and why it matters more than ever in our hyper-connected world. The overconfident professional. Think about your workplace. How often have you seen someone utterly sure they're doing an amazing job when the results clearly say otherwise? Research backs this up. In one study, 95% of managers rated themselves as being in the top 50% of performers, a mathematical impossibility. This inflated self-image can have serious consequences. Overconfident employees are often resistant to feedback, make reckless decisions, and derail team dynamics. They genuinely believe they're adding value, even when they're not. And because they project confidence, others may mistake it for competence, especially in environments that reward assertiveness over accuracy. This effect doesn't just harm individuals, it shapes entire company cultures. When promotions and recognition favor confidence instead of proven results, organizations can develop what researchers call confidence cascades. That's when groups start valuing certainty over truth. Over time, good judgment and humility get pushed aside by bold claims and poor decisions. It's not just a theory. History is full of leaders who made disastrous calls because they overestimated their understanding. The 2008 financial crisis, for example, was partly fueled by executives and investors who were convinced they understood complex systems that, in reality, they didn't. When confidence becomes dangerous, medicine and health. Now imagine this same effect in medicine, a field where overconfidence can literally cost lives. Studies show that medical students and doctors who score the lowest on clinical assessments often rate themselves the highest. The most confident are not necessarily the most competent. In one study, doctors who were most certain of their diagnoses were no more accurate than others, but they were significantly less likely to seek a second opinion or consult additional data. In other words, confidence replaced caution. During the COVID-19 pandemic, this effect was on full display. Social media became flooded with self-proclaimed experts, individuals with minimal background in epidemiology, confidently challenging virologists and public health officials. The result? Misinformation spread faster than the virus itself. This wasn't just ignorance. It was the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. People mistaking familiarity with facts for real understanding. Reading a few articles online or watching a YouTube video doesn't make one an expert on immunology or data modeling, but the illusion of understanding can be incredibly convincing. The politics of certainty. The Dunning-Kruger effect also thrives in politics, where confidence often outweighs accuracy. People with limited understanding of complex issues, economics, climate science, foreign policy, frequently express the strongest opinions. Studies show that individuals with the least political knowledge tend to have the most extreme positions and the greatest certainty in their correctness. Why? Because real expertise introduces complexity and uncertainty. Experts are aware of nuance, trade-offs, and the limits of data, but that doesn't sound appealing in an election campaign or on a viral tweet. As Neil deGrasse Tyson put it, one of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong. Populism often feeds on this bias, simplifying issues, vilifying experts, and rewarding overconfidence with applause. And in democracies, that can be dangerous. When confident but uninformed voices dominate, societies risk making decisions based on illusion rather than insight. Social media, the perfect breeding ground. If there's one place where the Dunning-Kruger effect thrives today, it's online. The internet has made knowledge accessible to everyone, which is great in theory, but it also gives people the illusion that access equals understanding. A quick Google search or a Reddit thread can make someone feel informed, even if they lack the broader context that true expertise requires. Social media platforms amplify this even further. Their algorithms reward confidence and engagement, not accuracy. The bolder, more certain a statement sounds, the more likes, shares, and clicks it gets. Nuance and humility, on the other hand, rarely go viral. This creates what researchers call an expertise crisis. The difference between actual experts and confident amateurs becomes blurred. In online debates, a PhD scientist and a keyboard warrior can appear to have equal authority, especially if the latter speaks louder. And echo chambers make it worse. Once people surround themselves with others who share their views, they stop encountering information that challenges their beliefs. The more they repeat and hear the same arguments, the more confident they become, even if they're completely wrong. As author Tom Nichols wrote in The Death of Expertise, the internet lets us contact and interact with many more people than we would normally encounter in our daily lives, but it can also give us the false impression that our views are more widely shared and more correct than they actually are. The role of culture. Confidence isn't universal. Interestingly, the Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't appear the same everywhere. Culture shapes how people express confidence and evaluate themselves. In the US and many Western societies, confidence is celebrated. Children are taught to believe in themselves, which is valuable, but it also encourages overestimation of ability. The American cultural emphasis on self-promotion and optimism can unintentionally amplify the Dunning-Kruger bias. Meanwhile, in East Asian cultures, humility and self-criticism are more deeply ingrained. Studies have shown that Japanese students often underestimate their abilities, the reverse of the Western pattern. This cultural humility, a tendency to assume there's always more to learn, can actually act as a buffer against overconfidence. Philosopher Confucius once said, "Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance." Cultures that embrace this mindset may be better at recognizing their own limitations and therefore less prone to the Dunning-Kruger trap. Still, no culture is immune. The challenge of not knowing what we don't know is universal. Escaping the trap. How to outsmart the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's easy to laugh at the absurd stories, like the man who covered his face in lemon juice to turn invisible. But the truth is, we've all been that person at some point. The Dunning-Kruger effect isn't just about other people. It's about us. None of us are immune to it. Because by its very nature, the effect hides itself from those who are caught in it. It's a blind spot, and the moment you say, "I'd never fall for that," you might already be halfway up Mount Stupid. So, how do we avoid this trap? How can we develop the kind of self-awareness that keeps confidence aligned with reality? Let's explore how to recognize, counteract, and grow beyond the Dunning-Kruger effect, both in our personal lives and in a world drowning in overconfidence. Step 1. Accept that you're not exempt. The first and most difficult step is simply admitting that you, like everyone else, are vulnerable to this bias. Intelligence doesn't protect you. Education doesn't protect you. Even experts can fall for the Dunning-Kruger effect when they step outside their area of expertise. As neuroscientist Robert Burton put it, the feeling of knowing is not a reliable guide to whether or not you actually know something. The mind craves certainty. We like the feeling of understanding, even when it's built on shallow knowledge. Recognizing that impulse, that rush of confidence that comes after learning a little, is the first signal to pause and check ourselves. Step 2. Seek honest, expert feedback. Here's the hard truth. You can't calibrate your self-awareness alone. We're terrible judges of our own competence, especially when we're just starting out. The best way to see ourselves clearly is through external feedback, particularly from people who genuinely know what they're talking about. That means not just asking for feedback, but really listening to it, even when it's uncomfortable. Defensive reactions, "they just don't get me," or "they're being too critical," are signs the bias is kicking in. Dunning himself noted that feedback and education are the antidotes to false confidence. But feedback only works if we're humble enough to accept it. So, find mentors, ask clarifying questions, compare your work against trusted benchmarks. The goal isn't to protect your ego, it's to improve your calibration between how good you think you are and how good you actually are. Step 3. Practice with reflection, not just repetition. You've probably heard the phrase, "practice makes perfect." But here's the catch. It's only true when that practice includes reflection and feedback. Otherwise, it's just rehearsed overconfidence. Psychologist Anders Ericsson, who studied expert performance for decades, coined the term deliberate practice. It's a specific, focused way of improving, setting goals, isolating weaknesses, and seeking immediate feedback. Without that structure, practice can reinforce errors, making us feel more skilled while actually repeating the same mistakes. So, whether you're learning an instrument, coding, public speaking, or cooking, don't just analyze what you're doing. Ask, what am I missing? What didn't go as planned? How can I get an outside perspective? That's how competence grows, not through blind repetition, but through mindful iteration. Step 4. Build metacognitive awareness. Metacognition, thinking about your thinking, is one of the most powerful defenses against the Dunning-Kruger effect. It means stepping outside your thoughts and asking, how do I know this? What evidence am I using? Could I be wrong? This sounds simple, but it's a habit that takes real discipline. It means slowing down before jumping to conclusions and being open to alternative perspectives. It's about replacing certainty with curiosity. The ancient philosopher Socrates captured this idea beautifully when he said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." This isn't about self-doubt, it's about intellectual humility. When you approach new topics with the mindset of a learner instead of a knower, you become less likely to overestimate yourself and more open to growth. Step 5. Get comfortable with "I don't know." Modern society doesn't reward uncertainty. Social media, business, even classroom environments often favor confident answers over honest ones. Saying "I don't know" can feel weak, but it's actually a sign of strength. Being comfortable with not knowing is a superpower. It means you're aware of your limits, and that awareness helps you learn faster. The physicist Richard Feynman, known for his intellectual humility, once said, "I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers that might be wrong." That mindset, being curious instead of certain, is what separates lifelong learners from those stuck on Mount Stupid. The real danger isn't ignorance itself, but the illusion of knowledge. Step 6. Embrace epistemic humility. Psychologists use the term epistemic humility to describe the ability to balance confidence with awareness of uncertainty. It's not about being insecure. It's about knowing your confidence has limits. Research in performance psychology shows that people who slightly overestimate their ability, just a bit, tend to perform better than those who underestimate themselves. A small dose of confidence fuels motivation, but when that confidence grows too far beyond reality, it becomes toxic. The sweet spot is what psychologist Albert Bandura called self-efficacy, the belief that you can improve through effort. He wrote, "People who have a sense of self-efficacy bounce back from failures. They approach things in terms of how to handle them rather than worrying about what can go wrong. That's the goal, to stay optimistic and motivated without drifting into delusion." Step 7. Redefine what it means to be smart. Finally, escaping the Dunning-Kruger trap requires rethinking how we define intelligence. Real wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about recognizing how much you don't know and being eager to keep learning. In a culture obsessed with being right, this can feel counterintuitive. But, as any expert will tell you, knowledge doesn't shrink your sense of mystery, it expands it. Every discovery opens up 10 new questions. This is why the most brilliant people often appear humble. They've seen the edges of the map, and they know how vast the unknown really is. When we understand that learning is a lifelong process, not a destination, we can stop pretending to know it all and start enjoying the adventure of figuring things out. The bigger picture: how the Dunning-Kruger effect shapes society. By now, we understand how the Dunning-Kruger effect operates within individuals, how it tricks people into believing they know more than they do, and how self-awareness and humility can help us escape that illusion. But what happens when millions of overconfident individuals interact in a complex society? The Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't just warp personal judgment, it influences institutions, politics, education, and the flow of information itself. Understanding its social impact is key to building a more thoughtful and informed world. The social cost of overconfidence. In a democracy, every voice matters, but not every voice carries equal understanding. When the least informed are the most confident, public discourse can tilt toward oversimplified or outright false narratives. This is what some psychologists refer to as the confidence paradox of democracy. The very freedom that allows everyone to share ideas also gives rise to an overabundance of ill-informed certainty. During elections, voters often feel empowered to weigh in on complex issues, economic policy, climate change, international relations, even when they've only encountered surface-level information. And because confident opinions spread faster than careful reasoning, populist and emotionally charged rhetoric tends to dominate. That's not just speculation. Studies show that people who know the least about political issues are often the most certain about their views, while those who know more tend to recognize ambiguity and trade-offs. This imbalance can lead to widespread misinformation, polarized debates, and what philosopher Hannah Arendt warned against decades ago. The ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction no longer exists. While we're far from totalitarian rule, the erosion of trust in expertise and factual reasoning poses similar risks in modern democracies. When facts become opinions, expertise loses its authority, and society loses its compass. The expertise crisis. In the internet age, the Dunning-Kruger effect has merged with something even more dangerous: information overload. We live in a time where knowledge is more accessible than ever, yet understanding is often thinner than it's ever been. A quick scroll through social media reveals countless people speaking with confidence on every imaginable topic: economics, nutrition, climate science, psychology, geopolitics. This illusion of understanding is amplified by algorithms that favor emotional certainty over intellectual honesty. The more confidently someone speaks, the more their message spreads, regardless of whether it's true. As author Tom Nichols explained in The Death of Expertise, the internet has made everyone's opinion seem equally valid, even when it's not. The result? The lines between experts and amateurs blur. Many begin to believe that knowing how to Google is equivalent to knowing how to think critically. This phenomenon, sometimes called knowledge flattening, creates a culture where expertise is distrusted, and armchair theorists dominate public conversation. Ironically, the Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't just silence experts, it pressures them to sound more confident and absolute, to compete with uninformed certainty. When education meets ego, the classroom is another place where the Dunning-Kruger effect quietly operates. Students who overestimate their understanding often resist feedback, while those who underestimate themselves hesitate to contribute. Teachers, meanwhile, face the challenge of managing both, boosting confidence where it's lacking and curbing it where it's inflated. But education systems often emphasize grades over growth, rewarding right answers instead of the curiosity that fuels lifelong learning. This creates what some psychologists call performance mindsets, where students aim to appear smart rather than become smart. Over time, this breeds fragile confidence that crumbles when challenged. In contrast, schools that encourage metacognitive learning, reflecting on one's own thought processes, help students calibrate confidence more accurately. They learn that being wrong isn't failure, it's data. As Confucius said centuries ago, real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. That idea remains as revolutionary today as it was 2,500 years ago, fixing the feedback loops. If overconfidence thrives in the absence of feedback, the cure lies in creating systems that provide accurate, constructive feedback at every level: personal, organizational, and societal. In organizations, that means fostering cultures where humility and learning are rewarded just as much as performance. Where leaders can say, "I don't know," without fear of losing credibility. In media, it means elevating voices that value nuance and verification over clickbait certainty. Fact-checking should be a cultural reflex, not an afterthought. In education, it means teaching critical thinking and information literacy, the ability to evaluate sources, detect bias, and separate confidence from competence. And in our personal lives, it means surrounding ourselves with people who challenge our assumptions rather than echo them. Growth rarely happens in echo chambers. It happens in discomfort. The power of intellectual humility. Ultimately, the Dunning-Kruger effect reminds us that humility isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The most brilliant minds in history, from Feynman to Darwin to Socrates, shared one thing in common: an awareness of their own limitations. When Charles Darwin published The Descent of Man, he famously wrote, "Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge." That single observation, made over a century before Dunning and Kruger's study, captures the entire essence of this bias. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. And that's not discouraging. It's freeing. Because once we stop pretending to know everything, we open the door to actual learning. In a world full of loud certainties, a quiet mind that questions itself is a rare and powerful thing. The takeaway: balancing confidence and curiosity. Understanding the Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't mean distrusting your instincts or silencing your voice. Confidence is still essential. It drives us to take risks, create, and contribute. The key is calibrated confidence, knowing when to trust your judgment and when to pause, research, or ask for help. Confidence grounded in curiosity is far stronger than arrogance grounded in ignorance. As writer Maria Popova beautifully put it, critical thinking without hope is cynicism, but hope without critical thinking is naivete. That's the balance we should all aim for, the confidence to act, paired with the humility to learn. If we can cultivate that balance, individually and collectively, we can begin to rebuild a culture that values truth over noise, wisdom over certainty, and curiosity over pride. Final thoughts. The Dunning-Kruger effect isn't just a psychological quirk. It's a mirror reflecting one of the deepest truths about human nature. The road from ignorance to expertise is long and humbling, but also profoundly rewarding. The more we know, the more we see how vast the unknown really is. And in that realization lies the essence of wisdom, that true intelligence begins not with certainty, but with wonder. As Richard Feynman once said, "I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned." And maybe, just maybe, that's the real cure for the Dunning-Kruger effect.